You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Thursday. It's just Thursday. Nothing real super special about it. It's just the day before Friday, so we like that. But anyway, welcome to Thursday, and pushing buttons on the board over there, that would be JP. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I'm good. How you doing this Thursday?
Good.
Turbo Thursday.
Turbo Thursday. Turboing our way to Friday.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, there's no food attached to this one.
I mean, there always can be, but there's not at the moment.
What would it be? Turtle Cheesecake Thursday or something.
That seems oddly specific.
Where's my mind right now? All right, hey, listen, we got a great show laid on for you. Thursdays do have one thing that's special. Every single Thursday, we try to get an episode of Butters and Lee. So, yeah, two people who are constantly in the background of what we do around here, sometimes in the foreground. Butters and Lee come on at 3:30. I ping them with questions, and then we flip the script, and they ping me with questions, and we just see where the things fall out. So that's at 3:30, Butters and Lee. And then I got a triple dipper filled up with stuff, so hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the triple dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, I didn't get to it yesterday. I mean, we've had some content that has been so steeped in thick that we had to work through that I didn't get to some of my stuff. So I'm getting to it today. First thing, I'm not gonna wait. I'm doing it first. Live free or die. Second Amendment, baby. You might want to know there's some new laws out there being proposed and some that are already going into effect. And if you're one of those who travels across state lines once in a while, you might want to pay attention. We're going to talk about Second Amendment, live free or die. That's number 1 on the triple dipper. Number 2, listen, here we are now. We're on WGOW 1150 AM out of Chattanooga. The East Tennessee, Western North Carolina region is still devastated by the Hurricane Helene disaster. And yet you have to look at what's going on in California, which is horrible, and wonder, is California getting more attention than East Tennessee and West North Carolina did? I don't know. It's sure worthy of debate, though, because there's some anecdotal evidence that seems to indicate that's the case. We'll talk about it. Number 2 on the triple dipper, I'm calling it relief. And then number 3, have you heard? There's a deal allegedly underway between Hamas and Israel. The question is, who brokered it? Was it the Trump administration or the Biden administration, or maybe both? And is it going to work? We're going to talk about it. Number 1, or number 3 on the triple dipper, ceasefire. There's right there, ceasefire and hostages, both of it. So we'll talk about that as number 3 on the triple dipper in great detail. And by the way, stories are still going out right now. That's kind of a fluid environment on that one. All right, let me jump on into the Right Side Way opening monologue, and I'll remind you guys that the opening monologue, the Right Side Way, every single day brought to you by attorney Stan McDonald from the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, and we'll talk about him more in just a minute. So last night, Joe Biden gave a speech from the Oval Office, and it was touted as his farewell speech. He pointed out himself that he's ending 50 years of service in D.C., and I, for one, am really glad, to be honest. I mean, at the risk of sounding like I'm kicking a man when he's down, let me just kick some more. Because last night's speech was the ultimate attempt to once again gaslight the American public. But it really felt like it fell flat. I watched it. I watched the whole thing. That's 20 minutes of my life I'll never get back. And while there were some things I agreed with, like the sentiments about the greatness of our nation and the will of the people and the legacy of American democracy, even when he said those things, somehow or another it felt more like platitudes. Like maybe the speechwriters have already left the building, so they pumped in some suggested AI-generated patriotic phrases and he just read them off the teleprompter. I mean, let's be honest. Everything about Biden's presidency felt like we were watching Jim Carrey's character in The Truman Show. You ever seen the movie The Truman Show? I mean, I'm generally speaking not a fan of Jim Carrey, but The Truman Show was one of his only forays into actual drama. Carey played the part of a man named Truman who didn't know that he was living inside of a reality show. An entire world had been built around him with actors playing his friends and family, a whole town that he lived in, a whole environment, really. Even the weather, it was all contrived. Truman had no idea he lived in a fake world. And every day he greeted his neighbors, he went to work, and from the time that he was a child, he'd been kept inside a bubble with a plastic world that he thought was real. Meanwhile, on the outside of the actual sets the Truman Show used, the world would watch Truman's life in real time. He was the number one character in a world that he thought was real, and the rest of the world knew wasn't. But it just went on and on and on, 24/7. Truman had habits that everyone smiled and nodded at, one of which was that every day he'd step out of his front door dressed smartly for work, carrying his briefcase, and wave at his neighbor as they watered the flowers and say, "Good morning, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night." Well, the directors and the actors and the producers of The Truman Show, they were gaslighting the main character. Nothing about it was good. First of all, understand this. Gaslighting is considered in clinical circles to be a form of psychological manipulation in the midst of an abusive relationship, a means by which the abuser attempts to sow self-doubt and confusion in their victim's mind. It's a means by which one individual seeks to gain power over and control of another by distorting reality and forcing them to question their own judgment and their intuition. The term gaslighting, it actually comes from a 1938 play called Angel Street, which Alfred Hitchcock adapted to the film called Gaslight. In the movie, a man tries to convince his wife that she's going insane so he can steal from her. When he turns on the lights in the attic to search for her jewelry collection and the gas lights dim downstairs because of it, he tells her it's all in her imagination. Well, gradually she begins to question her own memories and perceptions, but the term has become a more normalized part of the daily vernacular and used often to describe what happens when public discourse or political speeches or social media censoring or any other form of dialogue works to create an alternate view, coupled with, like usually, an insulting or canceling or threatening of the person with the opposite view. Well, we saw this. And the weird thing is, while Biden's trying to gaslight us, the reality is he doesn't know he's being gaslit every day during his presidency. But in the movie The Truman Show, there was a point in the movie when reality began to seep in. Truman began to sense trouble in paradise. He no longer trusted people who told him everything was okay. He's okay. And he began to lash out and get erratic. He tried to take back control. He tried to seize the narrative. At every turn, the actors who were pretending to be his friends and family, they just patted him on the head and told him condescendingly everything was well. He had it all under control. Until one day, they couldn't hide it from him anymore. And reality hit Truman like a brick. His whole life was a fake. And somehow Biden's speech last night felt like that. The speech felt like he desperately wanted to believe his reality, but he had already begun to believe the actual reality. But yet, he sat there in the Oval Office last night and basically put on his fake face in his farewell speech, and he said, "Good morning, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night." It was a symbol of his entire failed presidency. I mean, do you remember how many times over the last 4 years Biden appeared to have no grasp of the facts, no ability to convey the ground truth of events? I believe it was very likely because he was being kept from the truth, told that things were great by his staff and family who were really just manipulating him to get the narrative they wanted. It was like Biden was living in the Truman Show. Like the time in 2022, when Biden literally took a question from Fox's Peter Doocy during a rare press event. Doocy asked him about the constant walkbacks that the White House staff had to provide to clean up Biden's errant comments on Ukraine. The first thing out of his mouth, nobody's walking back anything. Well, so Doocy gave him a list of 3 major gaffes from the previous 72 hours. Chemical weapons, said we respond in kind. U.S. troops go into Ukraine. Putin shouldn't remain in power. His response, none of those 3 things ever happened. Well, we not only have the video and audio proof that they did happen, but we also have a photo of the cheat sheet that he was holding in his hand when he answered Doocy that told him how he should spin his answers to walk back the question of the walkbacks. Look, folks, if that's not a man living in an alternate reality, I don't know what is. But it was like that all the time. So last night, Biden gave a speech, and he touted successes that never happened. He said his administration had created more jobs than anybody, but they were really just jobs that people went back to after the COVID lockdowns were lifted. He said the world is safer as Afghanistan is now back in Taliban hands. Ukraine is on fire and the Middle East is in conflict. He pressed in on the dark efforts of what he called a rich oligarchy rising in power that don't pay their fair share. While just a week ago, he gave a Presidential Medal of Freedom to none other than progressive Dark Lord billionaire George Soros. He claimed that the economy that he's leaving to the incoming Trump administration is the best ever. Never mind the rampant inflation or the fact that the economy was the number one reason why he lost the election. I mean, to hear his speech, you would think that Joe Biden was taking a victory lap after completing 2 amazing world-changing terms. 2. But instead, he's among a very select group of one-term presidents leaving the office with the worst approval ratings ever, with only 33% of Americans believing he did a good job. But, by the way, that's less than half the approval ratings that Democrat Presidents Clinton and Obama left office with. But there was a moment in the movie, though, The Truman Show again. There was a moment in that movie when the manipulating directors, actors, and producers, they could no longer control the narrative. A moment when Truman stumbled upon truth and began to see that he had been misled and the cat was out of the bag. And the truth about his fake existence in the movie came crashing down. And the Truman Show itself came to an end. I believe that Joe Biden had that moment in June of last year when he took the debate stage. I think his handlers told him he was fine. Everything was good, no problems. You got this. You're doing a great job, boss. The country loves you. But even still, they took a week off to prep him, a whole week out of the White House. And then he stepped out on that stage with Donald Trump and completely unraveled as the whole world watched the Biden show come crashing to an end. The jig was up. The gaslighting of Joe Biden, the gaslighting of America was finally over. His handlers were desperate, so they tried to spin that everything was still fine and that as a, magnanimous gesture of his statesmanship, he would step aside and let the younger generation have the helm. But we could see it. We could see it because also now he could see it. And last night's speech was the final scene in a fake presidency. It was pitiful and it was maddening all at the same time. And I believe that Joe Biden finally saw what they didn't want him to see. That he was being used and lied to and that he wasn't even the one making the decisions and he really lost his mojo. He was a character in a reality show and they were propping him up. So last night from the Oval Office, Joe Biden looked in the camera and told America, good morning, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And the Biden show came to an end. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Well, there you have it. And yes, if you've ever seen The Truman Show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen it, it's worth seeing. But I kind of feel like we've been seeing it for 4 years. As Biden, I believed that he was doing well. And yet, we can all look from the outside and go, that ain't working. And I think he finally saw it himself when they could no longer prop him up and fake it out. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Plain right. Man, saving the world one soundbite at a time. So much to talk about, so little time. I am telling you, man. Hey, listen, before I go any further, though, speaking of talking about, let me talk about Stan McDonald. So Stan McDonald is an attorney he's a partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, and he is the one who sponsors the daily Rightside Way monologue. Look, Stan McDonald, I've known him personally. I think the world of him. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law in North Alabama. And not only will he advocate and fight for your legal needs, but y'all, Stan McDonald's been like an absolute warrior on causes that the Rightside ruffian community stands for and has been for years. I mean, he's an OG ruffian, let me just tell you. So attorney Stan McDonald represents his clients in like literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He can represent you in local, state, federal courts. Well, I like to say when Stan McDonald's on your side, you will have no greater friend and your adversaries will have no greater foe. So I'm going to give you his contact information. If you need an attorney, here you go. Attorney Stan McDonald, the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, an America First family man. Here's his number, 256-479-3020. That's Stan McDonald, 256-479-3020. And once again, no representation made. The quality legal service before the great quality legal service before the lawyers. Bam. Stop it. It's just silly.
It's better every day.
I'll tell you what else gets better every day. I just gave the whole monologue there about the Biden farewell speech. Mm-hmm. I thought he was done with the great farewell tour. No. Have you seen the thing they're doing at the Pentagon right now?
Yep.
Right now. Yep. Like a dog and pony show inside. I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
Ever.
It's... I mentioned this off air to you that this whole administration is just a self-licking ice cream cone. They pat themselves on the back for, the narcissism and self-obsession of this administration.
I'm going to tell you what I'm watching right now because it's live on Twitter. It's in front of me on my screen.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
If Trump did this, he would be called like a tin-pot dictator.
I can already see the side-by-side clips of Hitler and, the army parading by him. That's exactly the narrative they would go with.
They're doing a whole pass-in review with dress units from the Navy, the Air Force, the Army, all of it, and a whole pass-in review right now. Eyes right, and just doing the whole thing. I get it. That's part of military pomp and circumstance, but I have never seen an outgoing president have a big I'm the commander-in-chief party before he leaves. Have you?
No. And it's them throwing this for themselves is the part two.
That's what it is.
They're throwing it for themselves.
They're trying to rewrite the narrative as they leave with the worst approval ratings of any modern president. Any. 33% approval ratings. But I'm going to have a quick party, and they're going to do eyes right for me and pass in review because I'm the commander-in-chief. This is just gross.
But you know what? The Biden administration has 100% approval of itself, so that's all that matters to them.
Oh, man. You must have had your caffeine today. That's good. All right. Text lines are open. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it or call it. Got a couple of y'all jumping in already. Bruce from Springville says, Democrats live in a bubble where their leadership enslaves them by gaslighting, and now L.A. has to burn for it while North Carolina was betrayed. But you just wrapped up my whole show right there. There's like that text. I'm done. We can go ahead and sign off now. Bruce, good text. John from Huntsville, Phil, solid monologue, but I could have done without the Jim Carrey part. That was the whole point, though, brother.
Guess he doesn't like Jim Carrey.
I guess not. He's avoiding Seinfeld. I've got a C- for the day already, I can tell. I said, also, did you hear the sad sports news that Mr. Baseball Bob Uecker? I did not hear that.
Yeah, he passed away this morning.
I did not hear that. Bob Uecker passed away. Wow. At the age of 90. That guy was a hoot.
Man, his role in Major League is one of my favorites.
Yes.
Just a bit outside.
Yes, yes. Jeff from Indiana gives me a long text that I'll read when I get back from this break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the northern parts of the great Southeast. I'm talking about, y'all, this show is like from Huntsville to Chattanooga, from Tuscaloosa over to Gadsden, big old patches of Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. All right, hey, listen, we got plenty to talk about. Not the least of which is the Second Amendment. Live free or die, baby. I mean, listen, so never take that for granted. And I realize not everybody's going to be a gun guy, all right? So it doesn't have to be that you are. It doesn't mean that it's not one of your rights. You may not be a big public speaker, but you may not want to lose your First Amendment freedoms, right? You might not be a believer, but you shouldn't ever want to lose your right to religious freedoms. You may not have any desire to... Or for that matter, you may not ever get arrested, but you don't want to lose rights to due process. So what I'm saying is this: even if you're not a gun-toting right-side ruffian, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't care what's happening with your Second Amendment. Because right now there are things happening, both pro and con, related to the Second Amendment. It's in a constant state of attack. It is probably one of the most vilified of all the liberties, and it truly is a right. You have a constitutional right, not a privilege, not an opportunity, not a gracious giving of something by government to you. It is something that government can't take away from you. It is yours already. It is inherent. It is absolutely there. It is tangible. And yet the left will constantly try to curtail it and blame crimes that have guns in them on the gun themselves. But they don't do that if it's a car. They, like this massive terrorist incident that we had down in horrible thing in New Orleans over New Year's. The guy had a gun and he had a car. He killed more people with the car than he did with the gun, but they're not going to ban the cars. Just saying. There's no congruity here. If somebody went on a rampage with a bat, they won't ban bats. If somebody stabs someone, they're not going to ban knives. Why do they attack this? Because it's a target of opportunity for the left, because it's a right. And they hate the fact that you have rights. They just do. They hate the fact that we have rights. They would love to be able to have an office of disinformation to correct us on our freedom of speech. They would love to be able to say, well, when the COVID lockdowns come, you can't even meet with your church because, religious freedom means nothing to them. All of these things I'm telling you, they're legit. Think about the places where you're attacked that actually deal with your religious liberties, with your freedom of speech, with your rights of due process, with all of it. And recognize that even if those things aren't something that you take advantage of on a daily basis or make use of on a regular set of events, it does not mean you should not care. Because the minute they can erode one of them, they can erode all of them. If they can come in and tell you, you are not allowed to speak, then I got news. The next thing they'll tell you is you're not allowed to assemble. You're not allowed to express yourself. We don't have to worry about freedom of the press. We can censor that. And oh, by the way, that Second Amendment, that right to bear arms, they put it number 2 for a reason. Because the very first thing they did was they say in the First Amendment, you're going to have the right to freedom of speech, you're going to have the right to freedom of your religion, and you're going to have the right to a free press. Basically, the ability to communicate and to worship was considered sacrosanct, and it was number 1. That's the First Amendment. But right behind it is the ability to defend it with the Second Amendment. Now, there's a movement afoot right now to do some things. Pro and con, like I said. Here's one that's actually pro. Pulled this off Red State. Got hold of it, Dateline was 3 days ago. Concealed carry reciprocity. All right, what are we talking about? Reciprocity, fancy word meaning you do it and so will I. I'll do it with you. We reciprocate. Alabama, where I'm sitting right now, is a full-fledged permitless carry state. You can carry concealed, you can carry open. No one can say anything about it. Do we still sell gun permits? Yes, we do. Why do we do that? Because not every state feels that way. And if you're going to bring your firearm with you while you're driving north across state lines and you drive into Illinois, you might want to know that you've got a permit from wherever you originated that authorizes you, and you're hoping that state provides you with some reciprocity. Meaning, if you get pulled over in a traffic stop and the officer says, "I need to see your license and registration, please, and would you step out of the car and advise me, do you have any weapons in the car?" Well, yes, I do, officer. What do you have? Well, I have a Glock 9mm under the seat. Okay, do you have a permit for that? Yes, I do. I'd like to see the permit too. All right, in other words, you had reciprocity, but you may find, here's the problem. You may find that some states, and even some installations, like it amazes me, and this ticks me off, but I know a young man right now who is facing criminal charges because as a young worker at Redstone Arsenal, Alabama, right here in my listening area, in the heart of Alabama, a freedom-loving red state where we have open carry and permitless carry, this young guy, who by the way had a security clearance, was going to work one day and an overzealous MP at the gate decided to stop him and do a vehicle search and found that he had a lawfully owned firearm in his vehicle secured, and he's now facing charges. Why? Because it's a federal installation. Oh, you mean things are different in other places? Yes, they are. Even sometimes inside the state, you can drive onto a post. By the way, I hope things work out the best for that kid. And I would hope that too, someone would get hold of that MP and say, is there a reason why you're picking on people like this with their freedoms? Anyway, we've got a situation right now in the House. Story from Red State. The Constitutional Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act. It's coming up. It's got a lot of support in the House. We now have a majority in the Senate. Will it pass? I don't know. What does it do? Well, it basically says we won't have a patchwork quilt of states. It says if you have a valid permit to carry a firearm in your home state, that every state will have to give you reciprocity, meaning that they can't deny your federal constitutional right to bear arms. Well, that's huge. President Donald Trump has already said that he will sign the bill if it comes to his desk. I mean, we got a narrow majority in the Senate. We got a very narrow majority in the House, but we do have a majority in both. And right now we have 124 co-sponsors on the bill, which is being carried by Representative Richard Hudson, the Republican out of North Carolina. So we've got a situation right now where they might be able to get away with, like right now we have 29 states that have permitless concealed carry, like Alabama. 29. But since not every state does, you can drive across one state line and wind up in being in big trouble without realizing it. So let's see what happens. The bill is before both bodies, and we'll know sometime in the near future. But that's not the way it is everywhere. Oh, no. Oh, no, no, no. Like, for instance, story here I pulled off of Yahoo. Phil, did you go to Yahoo? I did. Yahoo. Where's that piece? I was going to look at it. Yeah. So, California. Oh, well, I went there. California. This particular article from Yahoo came out right at 2 weeks ago. New gun laws rolling out in multiple states on January 1st. What do we have? Well, we have President Joe Biden, who is claiming that we need to do more for gun control. And Democrats in Democrat-run states are doing all they can to make that happen. But the National Rifle Association did have several victories, and that's good, in the year 2024. Much to the dismay of the gun control activists. But nonetheless, we still have, like California. Gavin Newsom signed in a series of laws that took effect January 1. Pray tell, what would they be? Well, the usual. We're going to do something token like establishing an Office of Gun Violence Prevention. What does it do? I don't know. Tells people not to do that? I don't know. What do you do with an Office of Gun Violence Prevention? Are they going to have subpoena power? Are they going to have arrest authority? Are they going to be manned by like certified police officers? Or are they going to be just like a bunch of do-gooders who have neat ideas and they put out like comic books for kids to read. I don't know. Or how about AB 1483? Strengthens a rule in California that does not allow you to buy more than one handgun every 30 days. Come on. I mean, I don't know what to think about that. I guess if you're buying a dozen at a time, you might go, wow, you need a dozen? But what if you do? What if you want a dozen? What if you're is it allowed dealer? I don't know. Are dealers bound? I don't know how they're handling this. But AB 1483 says you can't buy more than one every 30 days. That's absolutely a violation of the U.S. Constitution. How about this one? AB 1598 requires firearms dealers to provide consumers with a pamphlet that covers the risks of firearm ownership. Because nobody knew when they bought a gun that someone could get hurt if you weren't careful. So now we got to have a pamphlet put in your hands that says, by the way, be careful with your gun. Somebody could get hurt. This is just asinine. Colorado, this is fun. Colorado says as of January 1st, any handgun inside of an unoccupied vehicle has to be locked in a hard-sided container outside of plain view, and the vehicle must also be locked with some exceptions, although I don't have the exceptions here. I don't know what they are. What are the exceptions? I don't know. All I know is this. You got to have a hard-sided container containing your firearm inside of your locked vehicle. Otherwise, you're in violation of the law. How do they possibly enforce that? Is it a secondary thing? Can they pull you over just for that? Can the police officer walk to the parking lot and check doors? How do they do this? I don't know. Friggin' Colorado. But one of the big ones, though, that I think the NRA has been doing pretty good at fighting is this. There's a thing called a merchant category code. Have you heard about this, JP? All right, so when you use your credit card and you go buy something, right? The banking systems categorize different purchases on a credit card using what's called an MCC code. I did a whole segment on this last year, I think. The MCC code, the merchant category code. So if you're buying groceries, there's a code for that. If you're buying sporting goods, there's a code for that. For all this time, firearms have been categorized separately into the MCC category code for sporting goods. What's the big deal?
I don't see a big deal about that.
I don't either. But now they want firearm sales to have a separate merchant category code. Pray tell, why would that be?
So they can crack down on firearms
Bam!
Being purchased.
Did I say bam? Yes, I did. But yeah, it's exactly right. So they can create the list. If they create a database, why would they need a database? Why would you want a database of who bought a firearm?
Why is it any of their business?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. There's no actual viable reason for why you would need a separate database of gun purchases unless you were looking for the gun purchasers. That's the only reason why they do it. You ever seen the original movie Red Dawn?
Yes, I have. I actually had to watch it in.
Praise God.
I had to watch it in history class in high school. Yes, I saw it.
Well, okay. All right, that's a good one. All right, so there's one scene in there where the Russians and the Cubans have just invaded, and the Cuban commander who is in the Colorado town where the Red Dawn, where the Wolverine kids came from, he says, "Go to the sporting goods store. You will find a list of every firearm that's been sold. You will go to the house of every person who bought a firearm. You will confiscate those firearms." That's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, that's.
If you build the list, you can find who bought them. That's all they would do.
And the only reason they want to know that is to take it away. Like that's the only reason they. I can't think of any other reason why they would even lie about wanting that list.
There's no other reason. Real quick, I've never heard of this. Minnesota passed a binary trigger ban. What is a binary trigger?
I have no idea what a binary trigger is.
It says here, a binary trigger allows a gun to be fired once when the trigger is pulled and again when the trigger is released. So the gun, you're firing in both directions? I've never heard of a binary trigger.
So it shoots again when you let off the trigger? Is that what it says?
I guess.
How does that... What? I've never even heard of that.
That sounds crazy, to be honest with you. How do you control that? Delaware makes it a felony to possess a firearm anywhere near a school campus. Good luck with that. And New York requires gun dealers now to post warning signs warning consumers about the risks of gun ownership. So, hey, firearms are inherently dangerous. Good luck.
By the way, this could kill somebody if you didn't know. It's called a gun.
messed up.
I don't know if you came here to buy a gun, but if you were, it could kill somebody.
Yeah. What? Yeah. If you buy poison, please understand it could have problems.
Yeah.
Just don't eat it. All right, we're taking a break right now. We're in number 1 of the Triple Dipper, Live Free or Die. So when you get back, I'll tell you about Tennessee. Just got a new bill in place this past year. And I like it. And it's important. And I'll tell you why. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Man, making common sense like a superpower. All right, so let's talk about Second Amendment, live free or die. How about red flag laws? You ever heard of red flag laws, JP? This is maybe a new one.
No, I have not.
All right, it's a fairly, I don't want to say too, it's not like it's unknown, but the term has really gotten a lot of notoriety in the last couple of years.
I've probably heard of the concept if,
I'm sure you have, but a red flag law is basically if something about your life raises a red flag to somebody in official capacity, they can flag you and you lose your firearm rights because you may or may not be a danger to yourself or others. The only question is who gets to decide that you really are a danger? Government. Government decides.
It's subjective to the government.
The government picks the winners and losers. So here's a scenario for you. Let's picture this. Maybe you're bat stir crazy and you've got a history of violent crime and that's real. Or maybe you're somebody who's in the middle of a bad divorce and your angry soon-to-be ex-spouse is trying to get custody of the kids, and so they file a claim against you that has no basis in reality. They're just doing it out of spite, trying to gain the upper hand in the divorce action, and suddenly you have a red flag, and now you can't have firearms. That's where we're headed with this. So that being said, red flag laws suck. Red flag laws are literally not something that a free society should ever allow or pursue or be happy about. But in Illinois, Dateline last week, Illinois, the governor is prepared to sign a bill that would allow the seizure of firearms from anybody who has had a red flag placed against them within 96 hours of the red flag. This includes ex parte orders where the respondent is not even notified. Ex parte means something happens without the speaking to. You can't have an ex parte conversation with a judge, or you can't have an ex parte hearing where an ex parte hearing would be one in which the other person is not involved. So in this case, they're saying there can be a claim filed against you. You didn't even know about it, but it's scary. And so someone comes in within 96 hours and shows on your door and has a badge and they say, we're here to seize your firearms. Red flag laws. Does that sound like a good idea? How about no? Yeah, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, oh, sure she did. She signed a extreme risk protection order legislation into effect in 2023. So in Michigan, yeah, red flag laws, they exist. They're soon to exist in Illinois. Thankful for Governor Bill Lee of Tennessee, who signed legislation that preempts any locals from trying to put in their own red flag laws, because what you have a real problem with is when a city council is liberal, but the rest of the state's not. And the city council says, we'll take matters into our own hands. We'll just curtail those liberties ourselves inside the city limits. And they try to put a red flag law in place for, I don't know, pick one, the city of Chattanooga, the city of Knoxville. And how about no? Well, right now, we've got Governor Lee and the legislature of Tennessee signed a bill that says local governments cannot enact their own red flag laws. All right, there, I feel like I crammed that last part in, but y'all just keep your eyes open. Red flag laws, that's a sneaky way of basically saying gun control. And the government gets to pick the winners and losers. Coming right back, we'll talk about some relief. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international, and oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2. By the way, if you are one of our regular radio listeners, great, we're glad of it. But just remember this, don't ever forget that no matter where you are in the big wide world, you can go to the World Wide Web and you can click on any number of platforms that contain a live stream broadcast daily of this radio show. So Rightside Radio is only one part of the bigger company, Rightside Media. We do podcasting, we have written word, we have all kinds of stuff. And oh, by the way, we have this radio show. And Rightside Radio, we got some great station affiliates and we get discussions with some more actually. But just know this, there's a lot of folks that stream the show live. You can go right now to YouTube and go to the Rightside Media channel and just watch us. You can see inside the Rightside studios, see what's going on around here. You can also watch it on our website, rightside.media.org. You can go to Rumble. You can go to 2 places on our Twitter, our X platforms. We got Rightside Media and my own @SinPhilWilliams. I encourage you to follow. Check them out. We're broadcasting live daily online, and you can catch us in all kinds of ways. All right, so let me get some text messages. I'm going to jump on. Oh, I got a call? I do? I did not realize. JP give me hey, I thought you were like hook 'em horns. I didn't know what was happening over
Definitely
there.
not that.
Brian from Huntsville's on line 1. Hey, man, how you doing?
Oh, doing okay, other than the hook 'em horns and everything. That's the fake you see.
What's up, buddy? What's on your mind?
Thank you, Vol Nation, for putting some sandbags out against red flag laws.
No, nice. So, yeah, that's wow. I mean, the idea that the government gets to pick the winners and losers and just decide, red flag, and we think it's true. That's just awful.
Other than that, a simple tip to anybody who has firearms that they have inherited or been given gifts in the past and everything, don't go out, don't pawn them, because then all of a sudden they get them in the system, even if you get them back under your name.
Wow. Great point.
You're just registering them for them then. So
yeah,
make sure you keep those away from any kind of financial transactions.
Wow. Okay. Great word, brother. Appreciate you.
Y'all have a good one.
See you, man. Yeah, that's a great point.
Reminds me of which my grandfather gifted me a shotgun that I've not put to use yet, and I think it's about time I start to utilize that.
I think it is
pretty dang cool.
I think it is.
Gift from him. It's a cool looking shotgun that was passed down from his father, I believe.
Pump action, breech load.
I believe it's pump action. Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to go look into that.
Let's go shoot some clays.
Yes.
I like it. All right, let me get some other text messages. Steve from Harvest says, I think Biden still believes that the lie that he's trying to pass off is truth. His speech once again projected on Trump Republican things his administration and his party are guilty of. Just as with so many things the left says, they want us to believe their truth, not the truth. Steve, you are so correct, man. And listen, that speech, I didn't even really get into it, but the things he kept touting and advocating are exactly what the public voted against in the last election. Like, I think we ought to continue to go all in on climate change being the existential threat to America. And no, there was nobody who went to the polls going, climate change is my most important grounds for voting. Nobody. It was the economy, which he failed at, and border security, which he failed at, and foreign policy, which he failed at. Jim from Athens, you got something else?
Well, I was just going to ask, since you watched that awful Biden speech last night, I did not. Didn't he mention in that somewhere that these California wildfires were started by climate change, insinuated or something?
I do not recall hearing that.
I saw a clip. It may have been somebody.
But they have been saying that.
Yes. It's just.
Yes. As a matter of fact, there was one part where he was saying climate change, existential threat just look at what's happening around us with massive hurricanes in the east and wildfires in the west. I think he said something along those lines.
It was not started by climate change. It's a funny word called arson, which is the start of these fires. I'll just say.
Yeah, arson and bad infrastructure.
Yeah.
And then poor wildlife management.
Poor prevention and management of it ever since. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Jim from Athens says The Rock hasn't been outlawed. Okay. There you go. Lewis from Trinity says, South Carolina does not recognize Alabama's concealed carry permit. It really chaps me because I have family in South Carolina. I was born in Charleston. I did not know that, Lewis, but daggum. Brian from Huntsville checking in on this. He says an MP or a contract gate guard. You know what? It might have been a contract gate guard. He said, I've heard multiple instances, talking about the Redstone Arsenal thing. He said, I've heard multiple instances of gate guards simply turning the person around, telling them to put it up at home and then come back. And yes, that's what they should have done, but they didn't do that. They basically took him into custody, and he now has to hire a lawyer to try and clear his name. He lost his job and his security clearance simply for driving through the gate. By the way, it's a military installation where they train you how to use firearms. Like if there's a safe place for firearm owners, it should be where all the green suiters who know how to use them live and work. But no. Redstone Arsenal need to get a grip on that. We got a brand spanking new texter in the line, calls himself Check from Hunts Vegas. Check from Hunts Vegas says the only thing worse than a binary trigger ban is a non-binary trigger ban. I don't know where to go with that. I'm going to leave that one on the table. Kenan from Huntsville says we need a law requiring any entity that prohibits guns on their property to provide an easily accessible locker for storage and to assume liability for both the gun and the safety of the disarmed people. What? You know what, Kenan? That's not a bad idea, to be honest with you. If you're going to say we can't have a gun on school property, but we have business on school property, you have to provide a place for us to lock and secure our gun on school property. Interesting. Yeah, we'll see where that goes. Unfunded mandates and all that. All right. Well, let me tell you. I tell you what, before I jump into my next dipper, I have a call on the line. Let me do that real quick. I'll take line one, Lloyd from Cortland. Hey, Lloyd, how you doing?
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
On the gun thing, my father taught me.
Hey, Lewis. Hey, Lloyd, you got to turn down your radio. You're getting all kinds of feedback back on us.
Okay, buddy. I said, my father taught me at a very young age. I killed my first deer when I was 9 years old.
There you go.
And I did it with my granddaddy's Sweet 16.
There you go.
Little Browning, Sweet 16.
Well, I believe it. You know what? And that's just called good common sense and good raising right there.
Yes, sir. I know all of my family, even my sisters, they knew how to shoot, and everything. And but I mean, he supervised me the whole time, but I was hunting at that young age. I had to stay with him. But I was taught from a very young age, the do's and the don'ts about, a gun.
I remember my granddaddy teaching me, and he had a little, I think it was a 38 snub-nosed revolver. And he taught me, he said, here's how you check and make sure it's empty. And then even when you know it's empty, you still don't ever point it at a person. And
that's exactly right. I got in trouble doing that one time. I carried, they let me tote the shotgun back to the house. Was over at my grandfather's house. And I had opened it up and looked. I knew it didn't have nothing in it, but he chastised me pretty good for that. When I come in there, I took it down off my shoulder, had it thrown up across my shoulder like something big. I was doing a big thing, and when I brought it down, I come across my grandparents and everything sitting over there. And man, I didn't do that no more.
I bet. Well, I'll tell you what, I've got the scars and the surgeries from being shot by somebody who didn't take care to point their gun in the opposite direction. So, hey, Lloyd, thanks for the call, man. Appreciate you. Live free or die, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Take care now.
You have a good one.
You too now. And then John from Lexington, South Carolina just checked in, says they allow hunting on Redstone with long guns, but jail if you bring a pistol. Interesting point. I'd forgotten about that. You can actually hunt on the outlands of Redstone Arsenal. Crazy. All right, let's talk for a few minutes here about relief. Those of y'all in our Chattanooga audience, I mean, you may feel this pain even more so because it's so close to home. But what happened in East Tennessee, Western North Carolina, during Hurricane Helene especially, is going down on the record now as being one of the most costly, damaging hurricane systems to ever hit the United States. I've got a piece here by CBS News. CBS came out with this in October. They said that Hurricane Helene and then also Hurricane Milton have now joined the ranks of Hurricanes Katrina, Sandy, and Harvey as the super costly $50 billion plus killers. They say that the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, has counted 396 weather-related disasters over the last 45 years that reached $1 billion in damage. 63 of those were hurricanes or tropical storms. But the $50 billion mark is a threshold that creates what they call a truly historic event. And it reaches a level that is rarely ever seen. And that's where we are, y'all. That's where we are. I mean, the people of, like I've got an article here. I just pulled this one off a local NBC affiliate. It's the little town of Irwin, Tennessee. Irwin, Tennessee was just ripped by the floodwaters that swept through their industrial park and others. Businesses were swept away. Things were just, I mean, they're just violently torn down. Death and destruction was all over the region. Irwin's a small town of about 6,000 people. And they were just, the Nolichucky River just swept away people's lives and livelihoods. And they're still struggling to get out of it. That story about Irwin, Tennessee is only 2 weeks old. East Tennessee Rail Network, I pulled this one off of Fox Weather. East Tennessee Rail Network is still looking at months to reopen. This came off a Dateline out of Asheville, North Carolina, but it's the East Tennessee Rail, devastated by Hurricane Helene, says that the epic historic flooding caused unprecedented damage and severe topographical changes to the region. In other words, they wiped away whole hillsides. I mean, valleys were washed out. The tree lines are gone. And Norfolk Southern Railway said that hundreds of its railroaders worked tirelessly trying to restore service, but they know for a fact it's still going to take months to get things reopened. I mean, it's just over 21,000 feet of track were washed out. You have no idea what that does to commerce, because that's how goods are shipped to market, and that's how, coal gets to electrical plants, and that's how all the things that happen that keep the wheels of commerce rely upon air and truck and rail, and a whole section of rail is gone. We're going to take a break right now. When we get right back, though, I want to talk about, are we seeing the same measure of relief for the people of the Appalachian region that we're talking about having for the people of California? It's a little frustrating. We'll talk about it in detail. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just giving you all the truth you can slap on a bumper sticker. Let's talk about this relief. So I just gave you just some of the information about the just horrific damage that was done to. Listen, I've spent a lot of time in the mountains of western North Carolina. Love the Appalachian Trail and love places around Asheville. Like there's a camp called Windy Gap that I spent a lot of time with in my time working with Young Life Ministries. And gosh, what gorgeous countryside. And so many of those areas have just been torn up. Well, FEMA, if you remember, we had this problem where FEMA announced right in the wake of the Hurricane Helene disaster, Mayorkas makes a statement that they're a little bit out of money, and it turns out they've been spending it on illegal aliens. Like what? You're not there for that. That's not a FEMA mission. Well, when you're in the Biden administration, it is. But a story here on the Charlotte Observer in mid-November says that as natural disasters surge, FEMA's budget shortfalls could delay Helene recovery, and we have found that to be true. And time and again, it has been the private sector that has done a better job. Now listen, I know that FEMA has done some things right. I get that. And there are some good people that work for FEMA, and I get that too. There's also been some jackleg things that have happened, and things that never should have happened, and things that still haven't happened that should have. Not the least of which is, oh, hey, Mayorkas, maybe in the middle of people grieving over their losses, you shouldn't say, I don't know how we're ever going to pay for this because we don't have enough money because we've been spending it on illegal aliens. Move forward here. Dateline last week. As massive cold weather front moved through the North Carolina region, Townhall.com reports FEMA was facing mounting backlash after announcing that it was going to be evicting North Carolina Hurricane Helene survivors from their temporary housing because the subsistence has run out. So basically, just as the winter storm is hitting the Carolinas, FEMA's voucher program called Transitional Sheltering Assistance was expiring. Period. Sorry. End of story. You need to go figure it out, people. So January 3rd, FEMA did notify certain families that were staying in hotels and motels that they were no longer eligible for the program. Maybe they determined that their home was now habitable, but yet they weren't going out and getting a full inspection and the repairs weren't fully made. And I mean, it's just on and on. The level of incompetence and, in my opinion, recalcitrance and even belligerence and oftentimes just indifference has been galling. Bless their hearts in East Tennessee, West North Carolina especially. And yet, somehow or another, and this is where it gets kind of weird, the fire is sweeping through California, which are just awful. And I did a whole segment on that last week, and I probably need to update it soon. Immediately, what happened? Joe Biden went out there. Remember that? He didn't go to North Carolina right away. I think he went eventually. But in California, the fires are still going. And he's already out there for a visit. And then what does he do? He ties it to climate change, says a warming planet is the reason why we are seeing all the fires. And then he said that there will be federal funding for the next 180 days to cover anything and everything to rebuild California. The people in North Carolina need that level of assurance. The good thing is you've got some people that are starting to talk about things a little differently now. Story here off of Scripps Newswire, Dateline 3 days ago. U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson suggested Monday that before they send federal aid to California, they need to address the way they've been handling their wildfire prevention programs. Hallelujah, because that's something that we keep paying for. As they make asinine decisions on water distribution and the inability to follow through on recommended clearing of lands to prevent fires, because environmentalists have control of the government out there. We're watching right now as the federal government finally, under Republican control, is saying, look, if we're going to keep sending you money every year for these Santa Ana fires, how about this? You've got to make some changes to the way you do business, or we can't keep sending checks. People in North Carolina had nothing to do with the hurricane sweeping through like that. California, some of this could have been mitigated. And yet, we're hearing more about aid to California than we have been about aid to North Carolina. And that's got to stop. All right, listen, coming up next, we got a round with Butters and Lee. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. I'm talking about y'all, Huntsville over to Chattanooga, Tuscaloosa over to Gaza, big old patches of Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. All right, we are in 3:30 on a Thursday afternoon. You know what that means. We're going to do a little round of what we like to call Butters and Lee. So let me call the roll. On the phone lines with us, she comes in here and filibusters at times and rails us with her opinions, and she's good at it. And that's Lee from Huntsville. Hey, Lee, how you doing?
Hey, I didn't realize I was railing someone. Okay.
Good day to you. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right. And then turning to my right in studio right now, sitting here with us, the ever-present Butters. Hey, Butterman, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Phil. How are you?
I am good. All right. Well, I pronounced the quorum, so obviously we got it. Let's hit some whoop-whoops and do some Butters and Lee. All right, you guys. Y'all know how this works. I ask y'all questions. I just kind of throw them out there, and we see where things stand, and then we flip the script second round, and y'all ask me questions, and I just wait to see what happens. So let me ask you a question. So we've been running a poll, and I'm kind of almost spoon-feeding this one because Butters is the one who handles the newsletter and the poll, being our digital guy. But we've been running a poll on our daily e-newsletter, the Right Side Report, asking which of Trump's nominees is the most important. And people have been like tagging in and saying, this one and that one. Here's my question for you. What are your thoughts on which one, like the poll, which one of these Trump nominees is the most important? If you had to have one right away, which one would it be and why? Lee, you first.
I would probably say that it's the Attorney General because that position kind of sets the tone for the administration, but it's followed extremely closely by, Secretary of Defense, which kind of sets the tone for us internationally. But I would still say Attorney General. I think Pam Bondi's going to be really good. I felt like she's done an excellent job in the hearing so far. She's very professional, even with the weirdo whack job questions from some of the senators just trying to make a name for themselves by, being shrieky and weird.
I would totally agree. And I think she not only held her own, she was like combative without being combative, meaning she was like professional. No, that's not the way we're going to play this game kind of responses. And I thought those were great. So, all right.
Agreed.
Anything else on that one? So you think Pam Bondi is the most important for Attorney General to get her in at least first, right?
I think she's going to be easier to push forward than Hegseth, although I think Hegseth really improved his standing by his hilarious at times statements and questions and the way he responded. But I think he's probably more important to get in because he's more iffy. She'll be fine. She's going to sail on in. And let's not underestimate RFK for what is it? Is it Health and Human Services, whatever he's over, because we see red number, whatever the heck, I think it's 3 that just got, the government decides all of a sudden they're going to ban it. That's because he's coming in. So I wouldn't underestimate his influence either, but it's nowhere near as much as the other two.
You want to talk about Rubio or anybody else while we're at it? I mean, I'm just, you're just running the whole list on us, Lee.
Well, you asked the question, sir.
Okay.
You did not give me parameters.
Butters, which of these nominees is the most important singular that you would like to see first?
Well, so starting in spot number 8, no, I'm kidding. So first off, You just turned me down.
I did not mean to turn you down. I just touched the gain slightly.
Pam definitely is not there to do the senator's homework.
Pam Bondi.
I don't know if
that was
you
a great line,
caught
by
that
the
comment. Okay, so serious answer to the question. I think I'm probably pretty in line with the results we're getting on the poll from everybody between Hegseth and Patel, FBI versus DOD. I would say in the current state of America right now, that FBI position, I think if I had to narrow it down to one, putting Kash Patel in there is critical to to the future of what we're going to do as a country. So the DOD has got there's a lot of work to do there, but like we got internal issues, and I think the FBI is definitely a big piece of that.
Well, that's interesting. So all three of us differ because mine is Pete Hegseth, and I say that because lawyer Phil talking, not the soldier Phil. The Constitution requires civilian oversight of our military. And I think this is a very unstable world, and one of the most dangerous times for any battlefield is during a transition of leadership. You know, a passage of lines, a new unit takes over the front lines, or whatever the case may be. I really feel like that our enemies are watching, and if somebody wanted to try and capitalize on our moments, it would be during the transition. And so to me, and we also need to we're hearing so many stories right now about people inside the Pentagon trying to sabotage Trump already. I'm of the mind, get them in there now. The DOJ, Pam Bondi, super important. I think she's next, but because she'll even supervise Kash Patel as FBI. But the reality is you can't bring a case, a legal case right away, but you can defend a war right away. So I'm going. Me personally, I'm going with Pete Hegseth. And so what I think I heard was you're going with Kash Patel, and then apparently Lee's going with everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
No, I would say in general, my thought process, I don't disagree. The DOD, there's a lot to fix and a lot of issues, but right now, like restoring a sense of transparency and trust internal to our own country right now, in general, if that makes sense. So maybe DOJ, I
get that,
but really reinvigorating that. I think the DOD, whoever they get in there, will be good.
All right. Let me jump on next question. We got about 4 minutes left before we go to the break. So let's do this. Weird thing happened in the Georgia state legislature. A lot of folks don't realize that every state has its own. People do, but they don't. They don't pay attention to it as much. But the state legislatures are hugely important. I used to be a state senator. I didn't even realize how important until I got down there because of all the things I became a part of once I was there. In Georgia, just to our east, which we have listeners in Georgia, they also have, in a number of states, they've been a new trend, and I've been a part of the organization that's been working on that. Club for Growth helps establish these freedom caucuses for state legislatures, the most conservative members of the body getting together in one caucus. The vice chair for the Freedom Caucus in Georgia's state Senate was just arrested today on the order of the Georgia Speaker of the House, simply because he apparently had made accusations of corruption against a former Speaker of the House, who I think is even dead. And they not only arrested him, they arrested him for merely trying to walk into the House chamber to watch the State of the State address by the governor. And he was told he was not welcome as a senator. And he was knocked down by state troopers and arrested and taken away in handcuffs as a state senator, just merely walking around in the legislative chambers. Listen, I may have poisoned the well with the question, but I think I know where you guys stand. And I'm going to go back to Lee first, if you don't mind. Lee, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, and he was shoved hard to the ground, too, like all the way to the ground. I need people to understand. He was, like, shoved off his feet and then arrested. I can't understand how this is legal, first of all.
Yeah.
But I think not only did he make disparaging comments about the former speaker or whatever, and, like, who couldn't do that in our state, right? But I'm saying he also made disparaging comments about, I think, why Fannie Willis wasn't removed. I mean, I think he tweaked some noses, but I don't understand how it's legal, even if you say stuff. We got people in our legislature that say bat crap crazy stuff, and they can still come.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it's legal. I don't understand.
And I don't know how you can also bar a member of the legislature from walking into the actual chamber where they do their business. That's just amazing to me. He represents 200,000 people as a part of his Senate district. I'm sorry. Hey, Butters, how you feel about it? I just started talking.
I'm starting to feel like I'm being banned from. I think it's crazy. It sounds like, as best I can piece together, it sounds like it was a situation that was handled poorly.
Yeah.
If the intent was because he was disruptive at one point, and so you want to like. The least disruptive thing would have been to just not make a deal of it, because as I understand, what they've charged him with is obstruction of like law enforcement officers or something like that, which sounds to me like basically because he was trying to get through the law enforcement officers to get into the State of the State address. So yeah, how is that legal? Did he say something that he might not, should have said? Possibly, but that sounds like a conversation between men or legislators going, hey, let's not do that anymore. But yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It is pretty crazy. And listen, I can just tell you for a fact that there are, and every state's different, so I'm not sure exactly what they have as a governing overarching body, but I'm almost positive they have an ethics commission in Georgia like we do in Alabama. If there was an ethical violation, then they could have taken it to the ethics commission for review. If there was something that he did that was inappropriate or a violation of the rules of the House and Senate, which they have rules and they have decorum, and I get it. I mean, you're not allowed, like in the Senate chamber in Alabama, you can't, a male member of the Senate cannot walk in without wearing a tie. There's a dress code. You have to wear a tie. But at the same time, you look at it and go, this was a case where you can censure someone publicly. You can have a hearing on it. You can bring him up on charges of ethical violations and have it reviewed. But to simply have the state troopers ordered to go out there and knock him to the ground and cuff him because he's trying to walk into the House chamber, my God, this is a whole new day.
Could you do that in the state of Alabama, Phil?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Now the Speaker of the House, generally speaking, even in D.C., has the governing authority for the security of the body. And so they do. They are allowed to have the troopers, remove protesters and all that kind of stuff. But he's a sitting senator. That's the problem.
Well, and so the other thought goes through my mind of the Leos, the state troopers, and what decision matrix that is, which that's a tough spot to put them in, because in theory they could have turned around and said, well, no, like we're not doing that, But I really hate to armchair quarterback those kind of decisions made on the scene.
But I can't imagine how there's a real upside to this. And I'll tell you just a quick anecdote. Remember this back, was it early last year when they had the Kevin McCarthy speaker votes, and Matt Gaetz was the one who was kind of holding out, and Alabama's own Mike Rogers. There's some question about whether he was really going to fight, but Mike Rogers had to be restrained on the floor of the House during the votes for speaker, and yet nobody called for his resignation, and he did publicly apologize for it. But the reality is, stuff happens, and you look at it and think, be big boys and
go watch Parliament.
I tell you what, real fun. Go watch like a Korean Parliament or Taiwanese Parliament,
South Korea,
Thailand. Yeah,
you want to get Americans paying more attention to their government. We live stream that kind of stuff. We might get a bit more attention.
Instead of having the well of the House to debate bills, you debate inside an octagon. That'd be great. All right, listen.
Watch MTG come off the ropes on AOC. Just nail her.
I bet Dana White could put that together.
I am pretty sure MTG would have that one like in a heartbeat. Although I think AOC is kind of like a little spider monkey. I think she probably could make it trouble. But all right, listen, we're taking a break right now. That's round one of Butters and Lee. We come right back. We flip the script, and what we got then is they ask me questions, and I wait to see what they got and hope that off the cuff I can find an answer. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just, I mean, like, man, making common sense like a superpower. All right, we're back to round 2 of Butters and Lee. We take the last few minutes of this segment. We call it Section 2, and this is where we flip the script, and they ask me questions, and I just kind of wait to see what they are. So I'm going to go, I tell you what, I went Lee first on the last 2 questions, so I'll flip it over here. Butterman, what question do you have from Wah?
Okay, so Pam Bondi.
Yep.
As I'm watching some of this ridiculousness,
I think she's a natural blonde.
Yeah. Which I yes. So they're making a big deal about loyalty to Trump as the AG, okay. And it occurred to me, thinking about our AG in Alabama, who is an elected official versus an appointment, and which, if you really kind of want to solve the loyalty issue or question, why do we not do an elected, federal AG? First off, it's just kind of looking for pontification on that, and just Pam Bondi in general, coming in as AG, and where things might go with that. And your thoughts? Pretty broad, but
that is so. Okay, so first of all, attorneys general around the nation, they're not all elected. Like more than half is my recollection.
Okay.
But there are, I think, state of Tennessee, y'all Chattanooga people, correct me if you want to, but I think the state of Tennessee, their attorney general is actually appointed by the state Supreme Court. Maine, I believe, is appointed by the governor. But then multiple states like Alabama, we elect our attorney general. And yes, it does create a separation of powers. It gives them the ability to remain sort of even-keeled and separate from the influence of the do you up my game? What just happened? The governor themselves. And that can be very healthy. On the federal side, I'd have to look, but I think that's a constitutional office. So I don't know that you could just say, let's change that. It would be a very, but I like the fact that right now it's a part of the cabinet. I do think it builds a team, and you avoid having a whole lot of I don't like you, so I'm going after you, while I also technically kind of work with you and for you. So anyway, I don't know, man. It's a mixed bag, but at the state level, it's also a mixed bag. I can't even begin to describe. I mean, I like the fact that we elect our state attorney general. I'm okay with the fact that we appoint and confirm but at least, by the way, you do have the backup of confirmation.
Yeah.
There are people who have been tapped for nomination before that quickly did not make it. So I'm not sure I'm even answering your question. But
no, it was more just a let's pull that string and see, because I'm just trying to think about, like you alluded to, the conflict that cause if they're, okay, so now you got a Democrat AG, somehow it gets in there.
That could happen.
And that, yeah, it's just.
And that would happen, by the way. And I think there are times when that would have been very difficult. And by the way, even Republicans don't always get along. Troy King, Bob Riley, that was a problem. We only got 1 minute left, so let me turn to Lee. Lee, you got a question for me I can deal with quickly?
Oh, wow. And I got, called on being too long, huh?
Well,
no, I was just going to say your thoughts on Biden's, I don't know, I'm leaving office speech. I wish he'd just get out, stop talking. But his speech on, not wanting to centralize power with all American oligarchs, as he put it.
Yeah.
Who he's talking about is Elon Musk. But when all the other oligarchs always worked in his favor, as well as giving a Medal of Freedom to the devil himself, George Soros, I just found that highly, highly hypocritical. What do you think?
I was beyond hypocritical. Yeah, my opening monologue, you may have missed it. My opening monologue was on that entire thing. And I really think that the height of hypocrisy was watching him call out so-called oligarchs centralizing power after giving the Presidential Medal of Freedom to George Soros. And oh, by the way, the Democrats raised twice and spent twice as much money as the Republicans did during the election cycle, and they can't even account for all of it. They had so much. So who's got the money now? All right, you guys, I appreciate both of you. Butters and Lee, we'll have you again next Thursday. Love y'all. See you.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Welcome to hour number 3. I'm saying it is... You think it's okay? You think? Hang on, I look at JP. I think my gain is like super duper high.
No, you're saying too loud. You're perfect.
I'm perfect.
Trust.
Did you just say I'm perfect?
Yeah, you are.
Okay. You're bucking for a raise right now, aren't you, buddy? All right, we're going to go with it. Hey, listen, I'm about to go into Dipper number 3 for the day that says, it's related to the ceasefire in Gaza. We're going to talk about this in detail. There's things you got to know, and there's also things that are happening. It's a fluid situation. It's even as we speak, still developing. But it's also something that you look at and go, okay, what's the Trump effect? Did this really happen? Is it going to happen? Can they uphold it? Is it gonna 6 months from now even still be real? We'll talk about that in detail. But I tell you what though, before I do, I gotta catch up on some text messages because you guys are some texting machines. So let me jump in here and get a few of those. Brandy from Owens Crossroads texted in. She said, "Man, my soapbox wants to come out when you talk about Second Amendment issues. Who made the AFT over Congress anyway?" So listen, I don't know. The reality is, I do not know how they think that every single time they bring a bill to the floor that curtails the Second Amendment that they can get away with it because the fight's on every time. But Brandy, I get you. Absolutely. Second Amendment, live free or die. Stephen from Athens says, he heard me talk about me being gunshot by somebody who was using poor muzzle discipline, shall we say. Said, I too have the scars from the surgery, and I still have the pain from a person who didn't understand the importance of not pointing a weapon at anyone you don't want to hurt nor kill. I was shot the first time by my own brother the first time, good Lord. He said, I was shot the first time by my own brother on my 14th birthday. Second time was downrange in the, oh, wow, how about that? Well, listen, I appreciate you, man, and thank you. Wow. Yeah, mine, so I got all the jokes. So, Phil, you did a tour in Afghanistan, you did a tour in Iraq, and you got shot in Ohatchee, Alabama? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. JT Lacey Springs says, my 3 grandsons aged 7 to 13 were introduced to firearms at the age of 3. Curiosity does not exist. You disrespect to the weapon. Well, that's reasonable. And there's things you can do, like not leaving loaded firearms out where children can get hold of them. Teaching children from an early age to respect them. It's just like a car. You wouldn't put a child behind the wheel of a car and say, now just don't drive too fast there, Junior. You wouldn't do that. Well, you don't do that with guns either. You teach respect, you teach safety, you instill it, and by the way, you bring retribution if you find out they do something wrong. Brian from Athens says, sadly, we're seeing vastly disproportionate responses to California versus Appalachia. This is my segment on the relief efforts. He said, the country as a whole has a dim view of the Appalachians. I think more importantly, we're watching the fires daily for weeks at a time, devouring neighborhoods, Hollywood, Malibu, Palisades. That's all the vernacular for the Americans. Where were these blue-collar towns were destroyed with little coverage in the hills of the eastern who cares? He said, let's not forget how people trying to help were locked out and turned away. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that part, but you're right. There were many times that people were willing to go cut a road in to get relief to people and find out if they needed something, and they were told they couldn't because that was wrong and they weren't authorized to do it. But I will tell you this, though, the private sector really has stood up. I'll tell you who else has stood up is the Amish. Have you seen this on social media? Amish building, like tiny homes for people. And like they'll come in there and using like those carpenter skills that are kind of beyond compare, and they're building like 15 or 20 a day. To make sure folks have some form of shelter that's better than a tent. Brian from Huntsville says FEMA equals Federal Equity Management Agency. Wow. Navy Phil from Athens says, you know the difference. California's blue, North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida are red. Well, there's that. He says climates have changed so often in the years the Earth has existed, long before fossil fuels were even used, still waiting on paleontologists to find a dinosaur vehicle. You're making too much sense there, Navy Phil. Jay from Killen, Alabama says, I think Russell Voigt for OMB. He'll add the power to the, so Office of Management and Budget. He thinks that's one of the best ones we could get somebody nominated for right away. He said he'll add power of the purse to anything POTUS wants to do. Well, that's interesting. I just don't know that. I mean, right now, I think that the constitutional mandate to provide for the common defense is why, in my opinion, the SecDef has to get in there as quickly as possible. The world is unstable. Our enemies can't stand us. China and Iran are licking their chops. And I think that the reality is we need to be prepared as quickly as possible to mount a defense of the nation. Jeff from Athens says the DOD is extremely important in the world. However, the FBI is a domestic agency. They operate amongst us. The military could defend our borders. The FBI could attack our front doors, and they have. Jeff, I hear you on that. I'll be honest with you, and while I know there have been some real overreaches, like even on Mar-a-Lago for that matter, arresting grannies who pray in front of, abortion clinics, knocking on the doors of dads who merely stood up for their child in front of an abortion clinic from a progressive activist. All those things, I get it. But I also really believe, too, that the FBI sees the handwriting on the wall and they know that without orders from the top telling them to do that they're going to have to curtail those kinds of efforts. And I really think Pam Bondi coming in as AG is going to bring it back around to what the FBI is supposed to be focused on, not constantly out there looking for, radical racial extremism, because that's secondary to true crime and human trafficking and drug trafficking and things coming across our southern border. They have to coordinate with the CIA on and ICE and all the others. Bernice from Tony, Alabama says, I'm likely too late with this comment. We'll find out. But I believe that comparing dollar sign costs among various disasters over such a long period of time does not take into account things like inflation and population density. Okay, this is a well thought out text. She says, we're here in Madison County, Alabama. Well, remember the 2011 tornadoes. Oh, absolutely. Our then county commission chairman, who was Dale Strong, made it very clear to FEMA when they finally arrived that everything was being handled locally, and he now represents us in Congress. That's interesting. Okay, and you make a decent point. But that's also a whole different demographic, and I think you're right when you say inflation and population density. Part of the problem we're seeing in the Carolinas, too, is the remoteness of some of the damage. People who live remotely in the valleys and hills and have their own, land sprawling out as opposed to a neighborhood in West Madison County or something, Alabama. You have to get to them. And so I realize it's harder, but that also means you have to step up your efforts and increase your capabilities. And I don't think FEMA has kept up with that the same way they should. David from Huntsville says Biden's malaise speech and Georgia is a police state. Okay. Yeah. And then Stephen from Athens says, keep your eye on the donut, not on the hole. David Lynch, 78 years old, just announced what often say Lynch was the noted director of the movie Twin Peaks. Okay, he just passed away. You're right. Keep your eye on the donut, not on the hole. Interesting. All right, listen, you guys are amazing texters. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. How do you feel about the things we talked about so far? I've been in live free or die, Second Amendment issues. I've been in relief for the Carolinas and what's going on in California. And is there a difference between the two? Then we had Butters and Lee, where we talked about the nominations of Trump's appointees and all that, or the confirmations of Trump's nominated appointees. All kinds of stuff to talk about. And in a minute, when we get back from this break, I'm about to jump into one of the biggest stories of the decade, and that's the fighting in the Middle East between Hamas and Israel. And have we reached a ceasefire? And are the Americans being held hostage coming home? And was it Trump or was it Biden or was it both? We'll talk about all of it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Pulling pins on truth grenades. That's what we're doing. Hey, by the way, welcome to all of y'all in our Chattanooga audience. Brand spanking new with us this week on WGOW 1150 AM out of Chattanooga, joining the Rightside Ruffian family. Hey, listen, if you're new to us, by the way, we have a text line. You can text the show every single day, 833-687-4448. But Rightside Radio also has a whole lot of other stuff going on. We're just one production of Rightside Media, the company. One of the things we've got is a daily newsletter. If you're not familiar, you can sign up for the daily newsletter simply by texting the word newsletter to that number I just gave you, 833-687-4448. Just text the single word newsletter. You'll get an automatic reply back that says, here's how you sign up. And yeah, we'll get it to you in your inbox every single day. It'll tell you what's coming on the show. It'll tell you what's going on the latest podcast. It'll give you insights on things about the show and about other things we're doing. It'll give you the latest written stuff that we've done. And then, oh, by the way, as the brand new merchandise comes online here in the next couple of weeks, you'll have quick access to it. So yeah, check it out. You can get the newsletter, the Right Side Report, daily just by sending the word newsletter to 833-68-RIGHT. This is going to be a triple dipper day. That just dawned on me.
It's, you don't see many of those nowadays.
We're blazing through some stuff today.
We've seen three equally heavy dippers, but we still got them in.
They have been heavy dippers. This one is a pretty heavy dipper too. Ceasefire. I could call it Ceasefire and Hostages, but just to give it some ease of, transition online, I just named it Ceasefire, ! So, October 7th, 2023, Hamas comes across the border in the Gaza Strip and does a massive coordinated attack all over parts of Israel. And oh, by the way, this was not like a military on military attack. You may recall, I know I'm speaking to an audience that pays attention, but I'll just recap it for the benefit of the discussion. This was a massive, massive terror attack. They ransacked homes. They went to kibbutzes and they literally massacred families in their beds. They beheaded children. There were countless stories of rape. Over 1,200 Israeli citizens, non-military citizens, were killed. And then what's even more maddening was, I think I was like 240 something were taken hostage and taken back into the Gaza Strip. I don't know if Hamas thought that this was going to be something that the world would once again tell Israel to please use restraint, but Israel did not. Maybe Hamas was caught off guard by this, but Hamas has been devastated, and the whole Gaza Strip has been devastated. And the Gaza Strip is not small. It's like like if you drew a line across, I don't know, North Alabama, it would run from the Shoals all the way over to, Scottsboro. And it would have multiple cities in it that have, a couple of million people. But it's I say a couple million. Check the population of the Gaza Strip, please. It's not a couple million. I want to say it's a couple 100,000. But I take it back. It might be 1 million people in there. What do you got?
2 million.
2 million.
Yep.
Crammed in there.
2.142 million.
Yeah. Anyway, that place is a mess. We also, though, have seen Israel go in there and just begin turning that place into a parking lot. Well, the Biden administration has been feckless in the whole thing, unable to get anything done, constantly mixing its messages. Well, we're going to bring relief to the Gaza Strip, and we're going to spend $400 million on a floating pier that we just proved was not a good idea, and that didn't work out. Trying to bring aid to the people that were destroying our ally, Israel. Israel, meanwhile, pummeling daily. But at the same time, despite the protestations of the liberal progressives who want to wave the Palestinian flag and believe they know what's going on, Israel has been a nation that, much like the U.S., has done all it can to mitigate civilian damage. By letting them know we're about to bomb here, you need to move. Here's your safe passage corridor. You need to take it and get out. But we're coming in, and we're not kidding. And once they said we're coming in, they did. Well, the ceasefire has apparently been reached in the last 48 hours. Now, this ceasefire discussion has been up in the news and down in the news, up in the news and down in the news. Is it going to happen? And, of course, the Biden administration desperately wanted it because it showed that they had some bona fides in the foreign policy arena. It was not until after Trump got elected they finally saw movement. Funny how that works out. But in the taking of hostages, let us not forget that multiple Americans were taken hostage. Multiple American citizens, and yet the Biden administration still remains somewhat feckless in the way they handle things. You've got a terrorist organization attacking one of our allies and then taking Americans hostage along with a number of Israelis. And yet, what we saw was we wish you'd kind of use restraint and hey, careful there. Hey, and we're going to bring aid to the people who shot at you and raped your women and beheaded your children. But, whatever. Then Trump gets elected. And Trump made it very clear. You release the hostages before I'm inaugurated or all hell breaks loose, he said. So what does that mean? Well, we don't know yet, but what we do know is this. There is an agreement that is on the table that has tacitly been agreed to, but it is not official. Well, I thought it was done, Phil. No, it's not. It's not because there have been some impediments in the last 24 hours. There are members of Hamas who are already waffling, and there are members of the Israeli government that are saying, why are we doing this? They're giving away, like every time they trade a hostage, they get 50 Palestinian prisoners. It's a massive disparity in the trade-off. And there's also going to be a complete withdrawal of Israeli troops. And there's also going to be a number of concessions made and then aid into Gaza. And parts of the Israeli government, not unreasonably, are saying, what the heck, man? All right, that being said, the Israeli cabinet still has to vote on this to ratify it. And they have not. And they won't until sometime tomorrow, we think. The ceasefire is supposed to go into effect on Sunday, the day before Trump becomes president. Isn't that interesting? But Matt Miller, I believe it was Matt Miller, who is the spokesperson for the Biden State Department, he said this could not have gotten done without the Trump team also being involved. And I'm paraphrasing, but my recollection, was it Matt Miller? I think it was Matt Miller that said that, wasn't it? Do you recall?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's amazing to think that for over a year and a year and 3 months, the Biden administration couldn't get squat done. Trump got elected, and he said, fix it or all hell breaks loose. And suddenly, it appears to be on the cusp of being fixed the day before he takes office. Wow. I'm going to tell you what's in the plan when we get back, and then I'm going to tell you what's holding it up. And it's something you need to know because, y'all, there are American citizens still being held hostage, and we want them back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the great southeastern U.S. of A. I'm talking about Huntsville over to Chattanooga, Tuscaloosa over to Gadsden, some big old swatches of Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. All right, listen, I'm in this third dipper. I'm calling it Ceasefire, talking about what's going on with this, planned ceasefire / hostage release with the war between Israel and Hamas. So what do we know about this? Okay, here's the deal. We're being told by the Biden State Department, take that with a grain of salt, we're being told by the Biden State Department that this goes into effect on Sunday. There will be an initial 6-week ceasefire followed by, which involves 3 phases. So a 6-week ceasefire, phase 1, what does that mean? Phase 1 is going to be allegedly an immediate end to fighting, the withdrawal of all Israeli defense forces from the populated areas of Gaza, wow, and the release of 33 hostages, including women, children, elderly, and wounded. The fact that they're still holding women, children, elderly, and wounded ought to be shameful, but it's not. It's a source of pride for them. Biden was quick to add that there will be Americans in that hostage release. Not all of them, apparently. We know that there are at least, I guess we have proof of life that there are at least 3 Americans that were taken who are still being held that are alive. There's an older gentleman named Keith Siegel, who's 65 years old. There's a younger guy named Segui Dikol Chin, who is 36. And then there's a third one named Eden Alexander, who's only 21. And he's apparently not on the list for the first phase of releases. I don't understand why. Why is that? Anyway, Biden's happy. He's getting 2 out of 3, right? Anyway, the bottom line is phase 1 includes a withdrawal of Israeli defense forces and the release of 33 hostages. It also includes allowing an influx of up to 600 aid trucks into Gaza daily. There won't be anything bad in those aid trucks, I feel certain. Better search them. Second and third phase. Well, second and third phase is still to be negotiated. The second and third phase is going to be negotiated during the initial 6-week phase 1. But the agreement is that as long as there are good faith negotiations going on, that the ceasefire will remain in effect while the negotiations are still going on. And what they want now, what they're saying they want is a permanent end to the war between Israel and Hamas. Well, everybody wants a permanent end to the war. But Israel is sick to death of having to live next door to people that want to rape their children. And so I'm pretty sure that Israel is going to maintain a pretty hard line on this. Now, the agreement, that was a story, by the way, I pulled that one off of Daily Signal. This one is ABC. And ABC is reporting that the agreement still has to be officially voted on by the Security Cabinet. And the vote's expected to be, like 28-6. They think it's going to pass. There are some hardliners who are absolutely against negotiations with Hamas at all. They just want to eradicate them, and I don't blame them. But it'll probably pass if Hamas will quit waffling. Because what we're hearing right now is that Hamas is beginning to have last-minute oh yeahs. I mean, you come to the table with all the stuff, and then the 11th hour you come back with a little more stuff, and then the next 11th hour you come back with a little more stuff. And so what we're hearing right now is that the vote has been delayed to approve this. Whew, that's big doings, y'all. One of the latest sticking points is all of a sudden the Hamas side wants to renegotiate what is known as the Philadelphia Quarter, the Philadelphia Route or Philadelphia Quarter. Now, I had to go look this up, but let me tell you what this is. If you look at the Gaza Strip, the entire eastern side of Gaza borders Israel, but the southwestern portion or border squared off against Egypt's border. Along Egypt's border, They have about a 300-foot wide no man's land called the Philadelphia Corridor. And Hamas says they want Israeli troops out of that area. Why? Why do you care? I'll tell you why they care. Because that border area is a major smuggling route for contraband and weapons. Because it borders the northern Sinai area of Egypt, and that's an area where there are radicals that help bring in the weapons and supplies that Hamas needs to fight Israel. Hamas wants Israel out of the Philadelphia Corridor, the no man's land that borders that southwestern portion of Gaza. And Israel's like, how about no? Here's the thing. Dan Senor, Charlene was telling me this morning, she saw an interview with Dan Senor who gave some great commentary on this. And he pointed out that actually Israel's in the driver's seat. Israel's the one with the leverage. Hamas is beat up. Hamas is losing on the world stage. And Hamas now has to deal with Donald Trump. And Hamas recognizes that it's a whole new day starting Monday. And they're worried about it. Israel has more leverage than it's ever had. Hamas has been completely flattened. Israel has also, by the way, kicked Iran directly in the teeth. And, oh, by the way, has pretty much devastated Hezbollah to the north in Syria and Lebanon. Hamas is reeling right now. Israel's the one in the driver's seat. Israel wants to make a deal, they can make a deal. Israel doesn't want to make a deal, they don't have to. Israel wants to make a deal and Hamas says, okay, Israel is the one who gets to drive the terms. That's pretty much where we are. But right now, we have no idea if it's going to go through or not. Now, even this afternoon, Antony Blinken, God love him, the mortician who has been sitting in the State Department seat all this time. Have you ever watched him do a briefing? Antony Blinken.
He drives me nuts.
I mean, it's like the guy has never had caffeine in his life. He looks like he's half asleep every time he speaks, like he's apologetic for opening his mouth.
Yeah, he's got a lot of issues. I just remember him going to Ukraine in the middle of the battle to meet with Zelensky, and then he was caught at a Ukrainian bar playing the guitar. Do you remember that?
Oh my gosh!
It's like, you're sending a message that Ukraine's dying. Like it needs somebody to survive. Anyways, I want to go play guitar at a bar.
Bar hopping.
Yeah.
Gonna go pub crawl.
Yeah.
And do a little guitar playing.
I'm glad he's on his way out.
The fact that he took his guitar with him is also just another thing to think about. Yeah, there's a little bit of decorum issue there, but the other part is when he gives a speech, he always looks like a mortician. I'm very sorry to be here with you. I hope that you'll be well. We're having a hard time. And I can't wait to see Marco Rubio go in there.
Yeah.
I mean, Rubio is engaging. Rubio will say it like it is. Rubio won't mince words, but he knows what words need to be said. And I think Antony Blinken's been, operating outside his gifts for 4 years.
Been running the country. I mean, him and Jake Sullivan been making all of our
and Jake Sullivan. They definitely drove the train in Afghanistan.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It was the State Department was more in charge than the DOD was. State Department was telling the generals what to do. Biden was like, "Oh, it's ISIS-K.
Tell me where to sign."
Yeah, what do I do? All right, listen, we've got a ceasefire agreement. Is it going to hold? Well, Americans are expected to be a part of it. Are they going to be in it? But even the Biden insiders right now are admitting they couldn't get it done without Trump. Story here on the New York Post. Dateline yesterday. Says even Biden administration officials are admitting that it took President-elect Donald Trump wading into the Israel-Hamas negotiations to close the deal and force a hostage release and ceasefire after 15 months of war. 15 months. Multiple insiders and officials in both Israel and the U.S. told the Post that it was Trump's impending inauguration, combined with efforts of his Middle East Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, that finally solved a problem that had proved impossible for Biden and his team. I mean, that's where it is. You got to look at this and go, okay, but for the election of Donald Trump in November, we have no peace deal. But for the election of Donald Trump in November, we don't see the hostages. And I'm not convinced we're going to see them now. I pray that we will. I mean, can you imagine 460-something days being held in a tunnel under the bombed-out shell of Gaza Strip? The ones who we have rescued have had some harrowing stories of what their life was like. And it shouldn't ought to be that way. But that's the way it's been And that's part of Biden's legacy. Is you got Afghanistan, you got failed effort in the wake of Israel. You got a constant appeasement problem with Iran. You got China that's bowing up in a big way. And here we have a ceasefire deal that all we can do right now is hope that it's going to be real. But I'll tell you right now, here's the other thing, and I'll say this as sort of closing comments. Trump is not known for making empty threats. I mean, Qasem Soleimani is gone for a reason. ISIS was wiped off the map for a period of time for a reason. The enemies of our state recognize that Donald Trump is far more decisive and willing to do what is necessary to protect American interests than Biden will ever be claimed to be. That being said, Trump has almost given himself a red line moment. Remember the situation with Syria using chemical weapons, and then Barack Obama said, well, that would be a red line. And then they did, and he did nothing about it. Well, Donald Trump has said, if they're not out before I'm inaugurated, all hell will break loose. I think Hamas knows they better do something by Sunday because they don't know what all hell will break loose means. They're not sure what Donald Trump would do. Is he saying that he'll come over here and do something? And then they don't know. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know. But I do know this, Trump cannot say that as affirmatively as he has, and on day one of his administration, not actually do something.
It's mighty convenient that the ceasefire deal takes place on the day before the inauguration.
Yeah, absolutely. Which you look at it and think, okay, the timing is everything. And if we are looking at a Trump that we believe is as strong and forthright as he is, then something is going to happen if they have not released the hostages, or at least the ongoing process of releasing the hostages is underway. I think if they're underway, I think Trump will go, I'm watching and waiting, but I still mean what I said. But if this hasn't been ratified and they haven't signed on to it, I think it's game on, brother. I think we're gonna watch a complete blockade of aid, and we're gonna watch basically Israel being told, all right, we'll give you whatever weapons you need. Go you therefore.
Or, I don't know, the possibility of mobilizing some Tier 1 special ops people to go find the hostages.
I could live with that.
Yeah, I could too.
I think there's folks at Delta and SEAL Team 6 that are just chomping at the bit. I mean, you go ahead and get the SMUs, the special mission units, and tell the Tier 1s, get her done, boys. That's what I'm saying. All right, we're taking a break, taking the last break of the day here on a Turbo Thursday. We'll come right back, clean up some text messages, and take it to the house. Getting you all the way to go home time. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. JP, should I feel somewhat put off by the fact that I just got a text letting me know that I have senior living available to me if I want to take a look at it? What the heck? Senior living. Stop it.
I'll hold off my comments.
Hey, by the way, speaking of great text, Richard from Madison just texted in. He said, this is off topic, but I had to share it. He said, I saw a bumper sticker. It said LGBT. LGBT standing for Liberty, Guns, Beer, and Trump. That's a ruffian bumper sticker right there. Let me get a few more texts and I'll go to the phones. Ed P. from Huntsville says, Phil, around 20 years ago, our daughter was tagged at a Redstone gate for accidentally having her pistol with her. She's an NRA pistol instructor, had not planned to go on the arsenal, but was doing so as a last-minute favor to me. And when the MP showed up and saw my daughter's Kimber Ultra Carry in a .45 ACP and learned that she was a pistol instructor, he got into a deep discussion with her on handguns. They spent 15 minutes swapping ideas on what makes a good pistol before he remembered why he was called, and they let her go with a warning and thanked her for the informative conversation. It was a different time, I guess. Yeah, if you missed it, I have personal knowledge of a young man who was detained at the gate for having a lawfully permitted pistol in his car, and he lost his security clearance and his job on the arsenal, and he is now pending charges. It's amazing. And by the way, he didn't brandish it. He was asked if he could do a car search, and they determined that he had a pistol. Robert from Ardmore says, the most confusing thing to me on the ceasefire deal is why would we and Israel agree to a ceasefire if they're only agreeing to release some of the I don't know, man. You got a great point. He said there should not be a deal unless they agree to release all the hostages. Absolutely. They're using them for their bargaining chips. They're trying to get everything they can. Junebug from Hartsville checks in and says the hostage deal is a terrible deal for Israel. Trump's special Middle Eastern envoy, Steve Witkoff, is a compromised and beholden to Qatar for bailing him out of a failing Manhattan hotel. What? Says Trump needs to reassign this position to someone who does not have ties to the enemies of Israel. The ratio of hostages released to terrorists released is around one hostage for every terrorist. I hope this can be improved for Israel's sake. Wow. Okay. Dang. She thinks she's got a backstory on that one. Let me run to the phones real quick before I run out of time. Jeff Rowe from Indiana is on the phone. Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Hey there, Grandpa. You may want to take up on that there senior housing.
Hang up on him, JP. Just hang up on him right now. I don't need this abuse. Oh, what's going on, man?
They're offering you a good thing. I'm doing good today, man. Heck, I don't even have to go through Nashville. I ran out of my hours, so.
Wow.
I have to take a 34-hour break after 70 hours, so, you know.
You got 70 hours of road travel, and now you got to take a 34-hour break. That's, you know what? I feel like I've got 70 hours of road travel on this radio show sometimes. Can I take a 34-hour break?
You might need it.
Well, what do you think about all this, man? What do you think about this hostage release situation, the ceasefire in Gaza?
Well, I'm hoping it all falls apart.
Do you?
Until Trump gets in there. I mean, because it's not a good deal the way things are going right now. Besides, I don't want Biden to have any, well, that was my deal, you know, and step and try to claim anything that's basically his fault that the thing happened to start with. But, you know, I think that they need to go in there and with Trump in charge and Netanyahu will be able to go in and do what he needs to do. And I think they know about all this stuff, and they're just kind of trying to get a better deal, and it's not going to happen. And, I'll make you another prediction.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, finish up. What you got?
I'll make you another prediction as well. I think within the Trump administration this next 4 years, I predict that the government of Iran will fall.
I agree with you. I think that Iran is on the cusp right now. I mean, I think we've got so much civil unrest fomenting below the surface that the Ayatollahs don't want us to know about. I think you're going to wind up seeing that. I think you're right. And I think with sanctions coming back in from the Trump administration, we very likely could see a return of the Shah. I don't know how it'll play out, but I think the Ayatollahs are going to be on the outs.
Biden basically gave him 4 years of extended life.
Yep.
That's about the only thing I can say for him.
That's exactly right, man. All right, brother. Hey, listen, the music's playing in about 15 seconds, so I got to run, but we'll talk to you soon. Be safe. Enjoy your time.
Have a good one. See you tomorrow.
See you, buddy. All right, listen, I am serious when I say this. This audience is amazing. You guys are great, and I didn't even get to all the text messages, and I apologize I couldn't get to all of them, but just stand by because we'll get more of them tomorrow. Listen, I'm saying it, and I'm saying it with all sincerity. There are indeed more of us than there are of them. God is still on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.